Does your child or student have an IEP or need one? Then you've come to the right place. If they have special education and related services, then you must know about when IEP meetings happen and why it matters. So inside this video, I'm taking you behind the scenes of the special education cycle so you know where you are and where you need to go, and you can advocate like a pro. What's up? I'm April Rarick, your special education advocate, to make IEPs and 504 plans so much easier. If you're new here, go ahead and click on that subscribe button and follow us on Instagram at RiseEdAdvocacy. Here's what you need to know about the special education process. Individual education plans, also known as IEPs, are regulated under IDA law. The problem is, pro tip, parents aren't always given the instructions and directions when it comes to knowing what to ask for and how to get it. So inside this video, I'm pulling you behind the scenes of the special education cycle so you know when your IEPs are going to happen and why. Keep watching this video into the very end, where I'm going to reveal all of my tips and resources so you can advocate like a pro. Okay, let's dig in. Step one of the special education cycle has to do with child find. So what is child find? Let's take a look inside the cycle. Child find is the district's obligation to search and serve. This means they need to locate, identify, and evaluate kids who have an actual or suspected disability. Now, to follow along with the rest of the special education cycle so you know when your meetings are going to happen and why, make sure to check in the link below for our free guide. So now you know we've talked about step one, having to do with child find. Let's talk about step two in the special education cycle, having to do with referral and response. What is that? That has to do with once a child is referred for a special education assessment, how is the district going to respond? Because pro tip, just because you asked for special education assessment doesn't mean it's going to happen. So make sure to check out our free guide called The Initial Special Education Voyage that lays out on a map what to expect for the process and how to know to get to what's called IEP land. So maybe you're watching this video and you're thinking, okay, April, I am ready to write my letter to request special education assessment. Here's what you need to know. Pro tip, just because you submit a letter doesn't mean the testing process is going to happen. Your school could come back and say, let's say wait and see, or let's do interventions first. Or you go through the entire testing process and your school comes back to you and says, you know what? Your child doesn't qualify. You don't want that. So make sure to check out our fillable template called the IEP Testing Step-by-Step Guide that walks you through the process of writing your letter, shows you the right words to use, how to submit your letter, who to send it to, and all the right steps so that you can get the IEP process started and your child can get the IEP that they deserve. Make sure to check in the link below for our free guide and our fillable template. Okay, so now we're ready for the next step. So we've talked about step one, child find. Let's say your child was identified as having a potential disability. Step two, referral and response. Let's say they are starting the process. That leads us to step three, special education assessments, also known as evaluations. So what is a special education assessment? A special education assessment is done by your school to determine if your child qualifies in at least 1 out of 13 eligibility areas. So depending on your state rules and regulations, there are timelines and there's going to be a lot of testing involved. The problem is, pro tip, unless you know how to read or even write a special education assessment, it's really complicated when you get to the next step that I'm going to talk about in a minute. So make sure to check out our video, How to Read a Special Education Assessment, with 3 tips tips that's going to guide you exactly what to look for inside the evaluation report and how to get the best report for your child so they can get the IEP that they deserve. Check in the link below for our video link. Once your child has finished the special education evaluation process, then you're going to come to step 4, eligibility determination. What is that? Eligibility determination is determined by a group of people at what's called an eligibility meeting. At the team meeting, it has to do with all the different evaluators that are going to come and talk about the test results, how your child is doing, and whether or not they meet at least one of 13 eligibility criteria based on federal and state and sometimes local state guidelines. You want to know exactly how your child is going to qualify, then make sure to check out our video, How to Qualify for an IEP, with a 3-part test that lays out the 3 things that you need to know so your child will qualify for the IEP that they deserve. Make sure to check in the link below for the video link. So you get to the eligibility meeting and you hear the great news. Yay! Your child qualifies. What happens next in the special education cycle? This brings me to step 5, IEP development. This is where your team develops the actual IEP that you've been wanting so badly. The problem is, pro tip, is that there's so many different moving parts when it comes to an IEP, from developing goals, understanding, specially designed instruction, accommodations, modifications, services, supports. Oh my goodness. So you need to understand how an IEP meeting operates and all the different parts, because pro tip, everybody else at the IEP meeting is going to know exactly what they're talking about except for you. You don't want this. So make sure to check out our workshop called the IEP Meetings Workshop that I developed specifically for parents, that walks you through all the different parts of an IEP, helps you to know how to meaningfully participate, how to read the IEP, how to understand the IEP, and how to advocate like a pro without stress. Your child can get the best IEP that they deserve. Make sure to check in the links below for the link to our amazing IEP Meetings Workshop. So now that your team has convened for that initial IEP, what is next in the cycle? Next in the cycle is called step 6. And step 6 has to do with progress monitoring and all the other IEPs in the special education cycle. So what does this look like? This looks like once your child has that initial IEP, then the team needs to monitor progress. They need to meet for an annual IEP, monitor progress again, and then meet for a second annual IEP, monitor progress again, and then meet for the triennial IEP, meaning that your team needs to reevaluate your child either in all the areas or part of the areas, and that also your team can convene with what's called an amendment IEP, a 30-day IEP, or even a re-evaluation. So now that you understand the special education cycle, I want you to think about this. The cycle repeats itself. So if your child is not progressing, you don't have to wait for the annual IEP to call the meeting. You don't have to wait if your child is struggling to request for additional assessments, supplemental assessments, or even a re-evaluation. Now you know where you are in the cycle. I want you to think about how you can make things better and advocate like a pro. So now you know when are your IEP meetings and why. Specifically, the 6 steps as part of the special education cycle. So now that you know it repeats itself and you know all the different parts, how do you want to advocate like a pro? It's a really good challenge. Got a question? Make sure to type it in below. Want me to do another video? Yep, I can do that too. Make sure to like and subscribe our videos to help us and other viewers advocate like a pro. Follow me on Instagram at RiseEdAdvocacy. I'm April Rarig, your special education advocate. I can't wait to see you for our next video.